Hello, fellow crafters. This is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee for Yana video. In this episode, I will show you how to create a modern one-layer greeting card using Simon's new Faceted Stripes stencil. I've started with a piece of sea glass cardstock. This is cut to 4¼ by 5½ inches to make the front of my card, and I have already attached the stencil over it. Now, what I've done here is I masked a part of the stencil to only use it in the upper portion of my panel, and I reserved the bottom portion of the panel for pretty sentiment. So I will not be applying the product all over the background. I used washi tape from my stash to attach the stencil and secure it in place on my paper. Once you've masked off the areas you want to preserve, it's time to apply product over the stencil to create a pretty background. Truth be told, there are so many different products on the market these days, and you can create any sort of background you can possibly imagine. I'm going with a rather simple and sort of basic look here, and I'm using modeling paste as a base, and we'll add glitter embossing powder as a top coat later. Now, there are also pastes available with the glitter already mixed in it, and I had one from Tonic Studios, but unfortunately, I didn't close the lid very tightly on the jar and it had dried out. So here I have modeling paste in white from Crafter's Workshop. I love this product. It's a pleasure to work with when combined with stencils. I'm using my palette knife to apply a generous amount of the paste on the paper. Now, my palette knife, as you can tell, has seen better days. You can see I have a lot of leftover paste on it. It's dried out and I can't get it out, so I can't exactly get a smooth coverage on my paper. If I wanted to apply the paste only, that would be a problem, as I'd have these uneven lines from the bumps on the palette knife. But I know I will be covering the paste with glitter, and that will disguise the uneven texture of the paste, so I'm not worried about the paste not being applied in an even layer here. I'm going to remove the stencil. I'm being very, very careful here. I'm trying not to mess up the design. Next, I'm not showing this on video, but I took the stencil and the palette knife to the sink to wash both in warm, soapy water. You don't want to keep this paste on your tools, as when it dries, trust me, you will not be able to get it out. To add the glitter that I mentioned earlier, I'm using Hero Art's Gold Glitter Embossing Powder. This is a wonderful product. Think gorgeous gold embossing powder and lots of pretty gold glitter added to the mix. It's very fine, it's very beautiful, I just love it. Now, the powder sticks nicely to the wet paste, so you don't even need to use an embossing ink here. And I'm tilting the paper to the side to make sure that I cover the sides of the paste as well, as it is dimensional, it's not laying flat on the background. So I'm covering the paste from the sides as well. I don't want to cover just the top and have white sides show on the card. I did get some embossing powder where I didn't actually need it or wanted it. I actually didn't use an anti-static powder tool here, something I probably should have done before applying the paste, but I didn't think about it at the moment. So if you want to recreate this card, do keep that in mind. Start by using your anti-static powder tool. So here, to remove that excess powder, I'm wiping it away using a dry brush. Now, I also have a bit of paste in a spot where I don't need any. I didn't do a very good job masking the stencil there. Now, the paste is still wet, so it comes off easily. So here I'm using a knife to scrape that paste off and also to clean the gaps in the design and remove any excess embossing powder. Now I'm ready to heat set this design. Often it is best to wait for the paste to dry on its own, as different pastes behave differently when subjected to heat. Some pastes bubble up. This paste seems to react okay to the heat, and no bubbling up took place on my background. But if you use a different product and don't want your paste to bubble up, set your background aside and let it dry. Once it is dry, you can use your heat tool to melt the embossing powder. This is a large background, plus the paste is rather wet, so it takes a good amount of time and heat to heat set the embossing powder and melt it in place. The heat tool is actually doing a double duty here. It's heat setting the embossing powder and it's also drying that paste. I've sped up this part of the video quite a lot as I didn't want you to have to watch me melt the powder for 5 minutes straight. With the background done, we need to add a sentiment. For this, I'm combining messages from the Simon's Greeting Mix 1 set and Tiny Words Encouragement sets to create a sentiment that reads, "You're everything wonderful, there's no one quite like you." And I'm stamping both messages plus a little heart in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm using my mini MISTI stamping tool to make sure that everything is stamped nicely. Very simple but classy design that's not hard to make and not hard to replicate. After adhering this panel to an A2 white card base, it's a side folding card, I'm using Sequins from the Star Spangled set to decorate the card. I'm just adding a few here and there, and this card is done. Now here's another take on the same idea, but using a different product to make a background. This was done using Tonic Studio's Nuvo Mousse in Honeydew color. So you can see you can use a lot of different products. You can even do simple inking through your stencil and don't have to add dimensional paste if you don't want to. I hope you will give this idea a try. If you do, as always, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We love seeing what you guys are making. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet done so. Do hit that bell icon to be notified of every new upload. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye!